I think this would be a really good way for people to kind of understand what's going on in the battle reports. This guy, and just like you, a lot of people ask me stuff. And if you have messaged me on Discord or in the game and I haven't responded to you, I'm just backed up on messages and I'm kind of on a new project. I try to reply to everybody, but it may take a few weeks. But he asked, he's like, hey, I have a question. This is from SVS. Why did he kill my tier 13 and then it jumped to his tier 4? So looking at the battle report, and just asking if everyone can see my screen. All right, cool. So basically, this guy, let's look at the battle details. And the attacker, let's see what the attacker sent. Attacker sent Siege. He sent tier 14, tier 13, and some tier 12. And that's about it. Like tier 12 and that's it. So we're looking at tier 12, tier 13, tier 14 Siege, 1,000 layers. So when we look at the defender, I want to draw a couple things right here. So let's look at what he said. He said, why did they attack his tier 13? They didn't apparently attack his tier 14. They attacked his tier 13, and he's like, they also attacked my tier 4 all the way down here. So let's take a look at these numbers. 934046. So that's how many deaths he had on his tier 4. If we go back to the attacker, and we look at the attacker's tier 12. So it killed 926. It mostly attacked their tier 4s. So 926. Well, if you added the 926 plus the 7425 right there, it equaled the 9, however much he lost on his tier 4s. So the tier 11s and tier 4s absolutely targeted his tier 4s. So that's why when people do the tier 11 siege marches, they're attacking tier 4s. So that explains that one. The other one is his tier 14s and tier 13s. So if we take a look at these numbers, you'll notice that he killed 1,750,000. Right, 1,750,000. And this one killed 1,600,000-ish. Now, if you actually add these numbers up exactly, they're going to reach whatever he lost on his tier 13s. So let's say tier 13s. So when you add them up exactly, they equal 3,353,676. The attacking tier 13s and tier 14s caused these wounds. Now the question is, why did they attack his tier 13 and not his tier 14? Because the rule is, right, the highest tier is generally attacked. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. They target based on attack, and there's a little bit more layers on what is causing the priority. But why his tier 13 got wounded? Well, that's because his tier 13 was never directly attacked. What happened in this battle is the attacker came, right? The tier 13 attacked first. Now, this is something that I haven't covered in any of my videos, but generally speaking, your layers are going to attack from the bottom up. Your tier 1s are going to attack, your tier 2s are going to attack, your tier 3s are going to attack, all the way up to your tier 12s. Your tier 13 and tier 14 are kind of randomly put in there, and there is a pattern in this. And once I figure out exactly how to calculate it, I'll probably make a video on that as well. But the tier 13s are attacking before the tier 14s. So his tier 13s attacked, caused some damage on this player's tier 14s. Didn't kill them all. It caused counterattack wounds. And I've explained a lot what counterattack wounds are. And if you're a player that doesn't understand counterattack, if you attack another troop, however many troops you kill are going to attack you back, unless you wipe out that layer. So it's a little bit more nuanced, and I'll try to explain a little bit further if people have questions. But basically, if you don't wipe out that layer is going to attack you back if they're within range. So his tier 13s attacked, did not kill the tier 14s. The tier 14s counterattacked his tier 13s. So that's what caused the wounds initially. Then, his tier 14s killed the rest of his tier 14s. So then he wiped out the tier 14s. That's why his That's why his tier 14s have no wounds. They didn't get counterattacked because they wiped out that layer. I just wanted to show one more thing before I stop sharing, because I think it's gonna be relevant right now because everyone's doing barbs, and it's gonna cut into my barb video, but exclusive for you guys. I'll show you guys something really cool. So, okay, when it comes to barbs, I just want to show this. Because this is also relevant. Barbs work pretty much very similar to attack and keep, but barbs don't have any range increasing stats. Like they don't have any like increase your range and stuff. So here I am. This is me attacking a 669, and you see I have 44 wounds. All right, and this is how I have as little wounds. I actually get less than this sometimes, but how to achieve this is I tell players, send 10 of every troop, pretty much 10 of every troop, and then maximize your archer layer. And what's happening is your archers are taking out the big layers on the barbs. Barbs are not built like how normal keeps are, so this is not a march you want to throw out a normal person, but this is something that goes against barbs since they mostly have just 4 big layers and nothing else. So your archers are just killing everything. But how I'm not getting any wounds is my archers are strong enough to kill everything in one shot. Also, the siege is unable to attack my archers. So if I look at this other battle report, this one I sent tier 14s and I had wounds. The reason I have wounds on this one is because the tier 14s were attacked on the first turn by the tier 13 siege, but then once everything moved up and got into position, the tier 13 siege started attacking the siege instead, because initially no siege was in range of the tier 13, and I kind of showed that along in my siege and speed mechanics video, why that is, and specifically because it has no siege increasing gear or books or anything like that. So this is going to attack your archers first. So that's why tier 13s I had no wounds, but tier 14s I had wounds. So just an idea for the players that like doing barbs. This is something to try out. Not all barbs are gonna work well with the strategy because some barbs are really ground intensive, but this is how I'm able to do it. I'm not like a giant player, and I'm getting very little wounds when I use full layer tier 13s. Anyway, I just want to show that so people who are doing barbs. One of the players were asking what do I do defensively, and I just want to show what I focus on when it comes to generals is I focus on my duty generals, because I maxed out all my duty generals before I even look at my defensive general. See, my defense general is 1 star, but all my duty generals are fully starred, and that's because I don't think I'm going to keep Leo, so I'm not going to invest in him. There's probably going to be a better defense general coming around. I might start using Richard Lionheart because he has really good stats. He's easier to fully max out. Richard Lionheart, he looks like he has terrible stats. Just hospital capacity. His final buff is hospital capacity. It looks awful. Awful. But when you actually are able to ascend him, these are some of the highest ascension buffs you can ever ask for. And also, many players will look at your keep and be like, oh, that's a terrible defense general. They're just going to try to run right into you, and they'll realize that you have insanely high buffs. So, and he's easy to obtain. I really want to answer this because this is something I think is so nuanced and it's difficult for players to understand. And I do apologize to everyone in the crowd. I know this chat usually likes to talk about tier 1s, but today we're talking about siege. I'm going to share my screen again, and I do want to show something on this. There's 2 things I want to show. So I'm going to go live again. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. All right. So in this attack, I didn't have my blazons attached because I was doing testing and completely forgot. So this is an SVS. This is me against a tier 1 trap keep. So if I go to look at their build, they have the Boudica, and they're pretty much mostly come down here. a bunch of tier 1s right here. So just to get positive, and I didn't want to kill my sub-city troops, I decided to attack him with siege. And I was attacking his tier 13s and his tier 12, tier 11 siege. What I would do with this is I would send, and I have weak generals. Like I haven't invested too much in my siege. But what I'd do is I'd just go 50-50 on the top two, and then I'd go tier 11, tier 12. I'm not doing any other layers at all. I'm just doing tier 12s and tier 11s. These two right here, the whole purpose of these two are not to getting kills. Notice they got no kills. That's because they're attacking the enemy's archer tower. The archer tower is the #1 priority for the siege. And the defending siege, tier 14 and tier 13 are going to kill them anyway. So I don't care about them. I'm not going to do anything with them. They're basically just protecting my tier 12s and tier 11s. So what's going to happen? See, he doesn't even have tier 14s. So his tier 13s are going to kill those 2 layers. And in the meantime, my tier 12s and tier 11s, their first attack is going to be against tier 12s. And I think this was just counterattack wounds. Their second attack is going to be against tier 13s. Notice no tier 4s should be attacked. I haven't even looked. Yeah, no tier 4s were lost. The reason for this is because all of his troops had to move up in order to attack. In order to attack my troops. Because generally what's going to happen, tier 4s are going to move up to attack your troops. But because all of his siege had to move up, because none of his siege were in range of my siege, that's why I targeted tier 12s instead. And basically his tier 13 end up, killing off my troops. But as you see, I went positive. I'm not using sub-cities. I don't have a super strong siege general. And this is just me hitting a tier 1 trap. Those annoying tier 1 traps that are in SVS? I'm just hitting him with siege, getting really positive scores, and I'm using no layers. And that's specifically because I want his higher tier siege to come out for me to target them for this reason. So, no, I kind of want to explain what's going on, because what you're saying has truth in certain... It has situational truth to it. And because I thought it's like, after originally looking at the mechanics, I was like, well, why not just send layers of 10? If they're just there to protect, and layers of 10 still help. But what's going on with you is there's 2 things that are going to affect layers. It is when your layers are attacking a keep. Let's say your ground layers are attacking the enemy ground. If you have a small layer, just like 10 or 100, those layers are going to die relatively fast to counterattack damage. They might die the very first turn if they're so small. That's why you don't want to send layers of just 1. Is because they will die to counterattack very quickly. Now when it comes to larger layers, a lot of people use the 1,000, which I think that's a decent, it's easy for everyone to start at, because you have to think the more you have on your layers, the less you're going to have on your attacking layers, which are going to be where your majority of your buffs are. But what's going on, what's going on with you, is if you have a much bigger protective layers, they're not going to die as fast to those low-level troops. And remember, I said that generally, and I don't want to put this out there because it's quite complicated, the order that's happening, but generally, the lowest level troops are going to attack first. So the enemies, tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, they're going to attack your biggest troops first, which means they're going to attack the top layers. So the tier 1s are going to be attacking the tier 14s, and the tier 2s are going to be attacking the tier 14s until the tier 14s are dead, and then tier 3s are going to attack the tier 13s. So if you have bigger layers, what that means is that your layers are going to survive longer against those low-level troops or middle-level troops to allow your main layers to survive and do more damage. That is the idea of what's going on. Now, that's not going to apply if you are attacking an enemy and their tier 1s and tier 2s and tier 3s and tier 4s are fully, like, they have several billion of them. They are, have a bunch of flat attack and stuff like that. Having those bigger layers may not be so relevant then, but they do help in terms of surviving those smaller low tier layers. Nox asked a question, and I'd like to bring it up because this is something I'm still working on, and it's something I'm uncomfortable talking about because I want to make sure that everything is perfect. But let me bring this out, and it's gonna. Let's see. Let me close out all my X hamster tabs real fast. Get that out. Okay. Yep. Yep. Okay. So let me share a screen. Got you guys. Yeah. No, I'm keeping that up. I'm keeping my grinder up. Let's see. Share screen. Okay. Go live. All right, guys. So I have a couple things on here, and this is where it gets kind of complicated. What you're seeing. Actually, I'm gonna. Is it better to go to this one? Yeah. Yeah, that one's actually more difficult to kind of understand what's going on. But let me try to explain this. So when you're attacking, imagine that these are your troops. You have tier 1 through tier 14 right here. You don't have tier 15s yet. It changes depending on how many troops you have. So you have tier 1s through tier 4s. When I did my testing, you would notice that if you have a smaller group, like here's like tier 1. The first, here we go. We'll just do this one right here. So tier 10 would attack first. Then tier 10 would attack first, then tier 9 would attack next. So they would attack from highest tier to lowest tier. And it'd be like that all the way up until there were 16 troops total. Once there's 16 troops total, this means that there's 6 different defenders. So say this is a tier 6, tier 5, tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 archers versus 10 tiers of archers. What's going to happen after you have more than 16 troops, more than 16 characters, is that it's going to kind of rearrange itself where tier 1 start attacking first, tier 10 and tier 9 attack randomly, right here it's 2 and 3, and then goes tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, tier 7, and so on. I know that is hard to digest, and this was a very difficult thing for me to do. So again, here's the same concept, except this time I had 11 tiers. And once you have more than 16 troops, so here's 5, 11, that's going to be 16. Once you have 17, it goes into this weird-ass order where the lowest tier attacks first. And here's tier 12, and you see here's 16. It's attacking a nice little order where the top tiers attack first. But after 16, your layers are going to be attacking a little bit differently. It's a very strange order. So right here, this is me basically putting that entire pattern out. So this is, again, if you don't have tier 15s, I'm not really sure. What I'd imagine would happen is the tier 13s will start attacking last, and then, but let me try to explain what this is showing. And don't mind the screen right here. The colors are just the ones I did test and the ones I didn't test. So I didn't test all the red because the red wasn't really possible for me to test, but this would be a reoccurring pattern. So let's say you attack somebody or you're defending. It doesn't matter. What's going to happen in this instance right here is the tier 13 is going to attack first. It's random. I mean, it's pseudo-random, but the tier 13s attack first. Then the tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, tier 4s, tier 5s. This is the order that they're attacking in. And last would be the tier 14s. Let's do it again. This is in this order. It all depends on how many troops they're sending at you. So this is going to change. If they have, several different layers, it's going to be somewhere around here. So one of these is going to happen. One of these orders is going to happen. So if you notice, and this is what I want to point out, tier 12 generally attacks second to last. The first and last are always random, but tier 12 are generally going to always attack last. Tier 11 almost attacks always like third to last. And that I think happened to make the myth of like tier 12s being so powerful, so strong, so amazing is because they're attacking last, which means that they're probably not going to waste their turn on a layer, like a protective layer. They're going to attack the main, body of whatever's marching at you or whatever you're marching at. It's going to most likely not fall onto a layer because all these other ones are going to kill layers and they're going to kind of stop at a meaty layer. The tier 12 are going to attack that meaty layer because they're going to be attacking most of the time last. In one instance, they do attack first, and in another instance, they actually attack last, not second to last. But that is the troop order in terms of attacking. Now, I'm sure this probably applies to attacking monsters as well. That's why sometimes you get wounds and sometimes somebody else gets wounds. It just depends on who's attacking last. And if it's like a rally or something like that, a lot of things are going to come into play as well. And also which order you're joining and stuff. But that is what I was trying to put out there and what the order is. Dumb it down. Not a lot of people know the pick. Sorry, Anya. I was trying to... There's a variety of experience in here. So that's what I wanted to explain with that right there. So I hope that answers the question a little bit to the people that can understand it. And if you can't, I do apologize. But I'll try and make a nice video on how that works once I have the pattern down completely. Do you know what? Looking at that, trying to explain what broadly what I think happened is if you were to pair archers with the same buffs against mounted with the same buffs, the mounted are going to win, and this is just because they're higher base stats. Even though the modifiers, the troop modifiers, are in the archers' favor. Archers do 20% more damage to mounted. Mounted do, I think, 20% or something like that less damage. I have to look at the numbers, but I'm saying that's just pure mounted versus archers. So mounted are going to win against archers in that case. However, why they normally lose when you have a mounted march versus archer march is because your mounted can't get to those archers. Your mounted has to kill those ground troops. Your mounted has to, eventually kill all those ground troops and mounted layers before they get to the archers, and by that time the archers had torn them into pieces. What I'm thinking is happening is your ground layers and your siege layers and whatever, they're killing the enemy's ground layers and mounted layers before your mounted even have a chance to show up. So your siege layers are killing some ground layers because you have thick siege. And then your ground gets involved. Your ground's going to target all their ground, wipe out their ground, take out some of their mounted. And now it's time for your mounted to fight. And your mounted are going to take out what's left of their mounted layers. Like your lower tiers of mounted are going to take out what's left of their mounted layers. And then you're going to go straight into attacking their archers. So your layers are killing their protective layers, making it so that they don't soak up the damage from your mounted. And I think that's what's going on in that case. And it's kind of an interesting strategy. And that's the thing when people talk about Ebony, it's like not one strategy works for everything. Your specific strategy is working against other marches. Though I think I'm not sure how it would work against attacking a keep as well. I think it does work against march versus march. I think it does work quite well.